Hey there, welcome to this episode of Author Success Show. I've heard of financial advisors and financial planners, but the special guest we have on today's show is a financial therapist. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Bob Wheeler. Bob explores his personal concept of creating a healthy relationship with money in his book, The Money Nerve Navigating the Emotions of Money, as well as in his online course, Mastering the Emotions of Money, and his podcast, Money You Should Ask. Bob helps people conquer their money shame and avoid making poor financial decisions by teaching how emotions can dictate our choices. His passion is to help others gain insights about how their emotions trigger financial decisions. Hey, Bob, welcome to Author Success Show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here today.
I'm also super excited because what you're doing is pretty unique, Bob. Because from my experience, accountants are these people who always think from their mind. But what you're doing is all about emotions, which is from the heart. So, how did you realize that there is this deep connection between finances and emotions?
Well, it was an interesting journey. Originally, hey, here's the numbers 2 + 2 is 4. Let's just go with it. And what I discovered is that a lot of my clients would go out and make decisions that were in complete opposition of what seemed like practical, sound advice. And they would just do things that weren't serving them. At the same time, I was also going through my own financial struggles. I was a CPA. I didn't have my finances together. I could tell other people what to do, how to save, and all those things. And I wasn't following my own advice.
It's very similar to doctors, being unhealthy.
That's right. And financially, I wasn't healthy. And I had to take a look at that. And what's going on for me? And what I realized was a lot of my tax appointments were turning into therapy sessions. People were willing to share stuff with me that they weren't sharing with other people. And I realized, oh my gosh, we're all walking around. Many of us are walking around with a lot of shame about our financial choices, about our financial literacy or lack of, and this isolation that we're the only ones. And so I really wanted to start conversations about money, whether it was light, whether it was heavy, but to just start these conversations to get people to see that it's actually okay to talk about money. It's okay to not know everything, and that we're all in this together and we can all support each other. And so that's really was my mission, was just to get started conversations.
Right. So right now, when clients come to you, how does their sessions typically look like? What do you take them through?
So when somebody comes to me and we know we're going to really work around the emotions, first thing I actually ask people is, are you willing to be uncomfortable? And are you willing to do the work? And surprisingly, some people will say no. And at that point, I'll say, well, we're done. Right? Because if you're not willing to be uncomfortable, if you're not willing to do the work, there's nowhere we can go. I can't fix you. It's internal. And what we do is we start to go back and review through journaling and questioning our history. What do we remember as a child? What did mom, dad say, not say? What was subtly said? When did we get punished if we said, hey, how much is that? Right? And we start to look at culturally, what were we taught? Did we grow up in a particular religion that advocated or didn't advocate for saving money? All those things we start to look at, and start to look at what are the beliefs you picked up? Is that in opposition of your parents, in support of your parents? Because often a lot of our relationships later in life are just mini recreations of those first parental relationships.
Right.
And we dig in and we start looking at money habits. Are we a saver? Are we coming from scarcity? Are we deserving? And really to start to feel into what is true, because we all technically have a heart. So let's check in with that.
Right. So you are also someone who is really passionate about climbing mountains, right?
Yes,
you've been
absolutely.
to Mount Kilimanjaro, the base camp of Mount Everest. So did any of these adventure experiences help you with your self-transformation?
Absolutely. So one of the biggest things that happened to me was when I was at Everest and I was with a bunch of friends, and we hiked that first day just to get into the national park. And it's rough that first day. And at the end of the day, everybody looked at me and said, let's just go back to Kathmandu and get massages and just stay for 2 weeks. I don't want to do this. And I had just spent all this money, and I'm a very cost benefit kind of person. I'm like, I spent a lot of money. I'm hiking. And what I had to do was say, let's just do this incrementally. Are you willing to just hike for the next hour? And at the end of each hour, we renegotiated whether we were going to continue. And so what happened was, it was digestible to say, we're just going to hike to that little peak. We're just going to hike to that little creek. And what happened was, after the first 3 or 4 days, we started negotiating 2 hours, 4 hours. And pretty soon we realized, oh, we can do this. But initially, it was overwhelming to just look and see Mount Everest and say, we got to get there. It was much more digestible to say, let's just get to that tree. Let's just get to that incline. And that's how we did it. So I really learned about baby steps and how it really helped calm the system and not take us into overwhelm.
Wow. So you've been doing this for a while right now, but at what point did you realize, Bob, that it's high time that you wrote a book about this?
Well, it was interesting. I was talking to a comic friend of mine, because I was also doing a lot of comedy, and I'm the CFO at the Comedy Store. And one of my friends was just visiting her family, and she'd just been shamed for going into comedy and not choosing something that was practical and financially rewarding. And so she was just telling me, her sob story. And I said to her, so many people that you think have it together don't have it together. I see what's going on behind the scenes. And trust me, they have it pretty rough. They're struggling. Yeah. And that was complete surprise. And she was so sure that she was the only person having financial issues. And she just had all the shame that she was trying to keep it hidden. Once I realized that, I thought, I've got to let people need to know they're not alone in all this. There are so many people, and there are people that take dramatic steps. People have killed themselves. People have, there's just so many things that negatively have come from from feeling isolated. And so I really wanted to, at that point, said, I got to write this story.
Right. So that was like the point where you got inspired to share this with the world and with a larger audience, right?
Absolutely. And interestingly enough, as I wrote the book, I then actually got a little panicked. I said, wait a minute. Who am I? There are people that are smarter than me. There are people that talk better than me. There are people that are better educated than me. Who am I? Who am I to go out and write a book and give a point of view? And so it really, maybe I shouldn't do this. So there was this place, and maybe that's true for some of your other folks out there that are saying, I want to share my voice, but it's scary. And what I realized is we all have a unique voice. It's so important that we give our voice sound, and we give it a platform, and nobody else even has to hear it or listen to it. But we don't need to suppress ourselves. And we're an expert in our own story. And so if we come from a place of, this is my story, nobody can tell you you're wrong because it's your story. And that was very liberating to me, to be able to say, you know what, this has been true for me. These have been my experiences. And no matter if anybody agrees or disagrees or find it surprising, it's my story and I'm going to tell it. And so it just felt really empowering to actually just stand up and say, here's what I've observed. I'm not an expert, but I've had a lot of experience, and maybe something resonates, maybe it doesn't. For what it's worth, here's what I've seen.
Wow, that's such an empowering way to look at this. Otherwise, we will keep on thinking that we are not good enough to share our message, right? And I love the title of your book, Bob. It's called The Money Nerve. And it actually follows some of the principles that I share with my students. I tell them that the book title should be 3 words or lesser than that. Yours is exactly 3 words. And it talks about, and it immediately tells what the book is about. It's about money. And it has this unique angle, it has that word which makes it look different, and it creates some curiosity. So I think it's perfect. You've nailed it. So how did you decide that this is going to be the title of the book? And I'm sure there are so many books on finances written there already. How did you intentionally try to make this a little different?
Well, As I was talking through the title and I had different ideas initially, one of the things that was really important to me was that money, even though we think of it as a neutral energy, 2 + 2 is 4, it's packed with so much emotion. And so what I was trying to suggest to people is that it hits a nerve, right? And that it's actually embodied. When we win a lottery ticket unexpectedly, we're like, oh my God, right? Or we get a present or a bonus check, and euphorically, we have this energy. It excites us. Our endorphins kick in. When we see that our account is overdrawn, when we get our credit card declined at a store, like the shame is visceral. And so for me, using the word nerve, the money nerve, is we carry it with us. And so once we can start to be aware of it and recognize when our nerve is acting out in a negative way, we can stop and say, oh, that's just some of my stuff, right? It doesn't have to rule me.
Right. I think that's a very nice way of packaging your book, because that's what it's all about. So you've written this book and published it in 2013. So it's almost been 9 years, right?
Yeah.
So what are some of the good things that have happened in your life as a result of becoming an author, Bob?
Well, there's a few things. One of the first things is writing a book, you immediately get street cred. It could have been a pamphlet and people will say, oh, he's written a book. And so that actually, I had other credentials that I had going for me, but having that book did actually have people pause and say, well, maybe I should take this person serious. Right. So there was that. The other thing was, it was a way to reach more people than just being in a workshop or just doing an email. Writing a book actually helped me connect with people everywhere, because the book is available. It's also an audio book and it's a digital book, all these different ways to read it. And so it connected me with more people. What it also did was it helped me to really lay out my strategy and how I work with people, and what my logic has been around money and the money process. I'll end up writing another book. I'm going to update the book and add a whole lot more stuff. Since then, it's given me the courage. I'm actually going to be releasing a series of children's books in the fall around financial literacy. And so it was great, and it gave me the confidence to say, oh, I don't have to be an expert book writer. I didn't have to go to college for 10 years of how to write a book. Tell your story. And there's so many different ways to do it. For me, I had a friend sit and just ask me question after question about my perspective, and we recorded everything.
Wow, that's interesting.
Because my head goes faster than my writing. And so it's just easier to tape it all, transcribe it, and then actually start to find the order and then find the missing pieces.
We call this process angel writing, Bob, where you have this friend interview you and you become the celebrity who just gives out answers, and that's recorded and transcribed and then rewritten. So I think you have been one of the first movers in the field of angel writing.
Oh, there you go. Well, it's a great way to do it, because we have so much information, but when we put ourselves in this box of, I must be a writer and I must write, it just doesn't work that way. I hear a lot of writers that I write 30 minutes a day. I write 4 pages. And then if I'm inspired, I keep going. There's so many different ways to do it. But for me, this was a perfect way to really want to share my story.
I totally believe that authors need not be writers. Writers are a different category of people who just love writing, right? Yeah. But an author is just this expert who wants to share their message or story. And you can follow any method to get the book written, as long as it's going to serve people out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I got to tell you that even writing the book helped me really look at the places where I had blind spots and where I needed to do a little bit more work, where I could look and say, yeah, that could use a little more energy. I need to do a little work there. So it was a great process personally, and professionally. It felt really great to actually set a goal, write the book, and get it published.
Sure. And your baby steps philosophy that you learned while climbing the Everest, also applies to the book, right? Because when you look at it as an entire book, it seems very daunting. But when you look
Yeah.
at it as smaller chapters, a little by little, every single day, then it's more doable.
Absolutely. And there's so many. I have a friend who's a writer who just wrote a book. And I said, man, that's a big book. He said, well, actually, what I did is, I write articles for these 3 or 4 different magazines. And
Okay.
so I just spent a year once a week writing an article about my topic. And at the end of the year, I just took all my articles, reformatted it into a book because I was sort of telling that story on purpose. And so
Right.
it took them a year of weekly writing, knowing that at the end they'd again have a book. So
Yeah.
finding your strategy and just trusting that what you have to bring is enough.
Absolutely. The other thing I noticed about you, Bob, is you have a well structured author funnel. So, what we call as author funnel is something that has 4 steps. And the first
Mhm.
step is the book, which is going to be
Mhm.
read by lots of people. And then the next
Yep.
step, you have another free value
Mhm.
platform like a podcast, where on a regular basis you give out something for free.
Right.
And then at the
Yeah.
next level is an online course or something that is not too expensive, but somebody has to open their wallet and pay to learn. And
Right.
finally, you have done for you services and speaking and all the high valued items. So, and you have all of them, right? So,
Yeah.
was it a conscious decision to build all this together?
It was. The podcast wasn't quite as intentional at the beginning when I started everything else, but it was a way to have the book, give people information, get curious, move to the online course, use some of the free resources we have on the website. And then from there, actually having written the book gave me a lot of speaking
Mhm.
engagements and the ability to get out in front of people. And what's interesting is if you had met me probably 10 years ago, I would have been terrified at the thought of getting up and speaking in front of 1,000 people or 500 people and talk about something serious. Now, when I was doing comedy, I could get up in front of 500 people because I felt safe behind the microphone and I only had to make you laugh. I didn't have to be intelligent or make sense. So
It's actually
you,
the other way around for most people. They can just go and talk about their topic, but it's so difficult to make the crowd laugh.
yeah, I know. I'm a weird duck, but that's what worked for me. But yeah, being able to get the speaking engagements, go out and connect with people, and then
Mhm.
afterwards, I remember the first 2 or 3 times I talked. Um, my person that was with me, my assistant, was having to like sneak me out a back door because everybody had a story to share. Everybody had a memory of something that happened to them as a child, something
Mm.
that happened with their parents, a life changing moment around money, and people just wanted to be heard and people just wanted to be acknowledged. And so for me, getting to connect with people live through workshops and all that stuff was all possible mainly because one, I written the book, which
Yeah.
then got me into places that would let me teach workshops that then helped exponentially grow everything.
Yeah. And again, I think the baby steps principle applies here also, because a lot of first time authors feel scared that, oh my God, I don't have speaking experience, I don't have a course. But I think one doesn't have to have everything while writing the book, it can all be built later on.
Absolutely. And what's been an interesting thing for me is as I've written the book and other things have happened, it's made me want to go back, redo the book, add a whole lot more, turn it into more of a workbook with
Mm.
with a lot more exercises. I've had a lot more stories to share that I think are relevant, and so I'm looking forward to refreshing the book, and it's going to be a different book. But I have found people have connected with the book, with the message, and I have tried to keep it uh, simple in layman's terms versus writing War and Peace 10,000 pages.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make it again digestible so people can say, oh, I can do that.
Yeah. One thing that I loved about what you said right now, Bob, is that when you wrote this book 9 years ago, you were already an expert because you've worked with a lot of people, you've personally gone through a lot of transformation, but you didn't wait to become the number one expert, because I think that's a myth. And
Yes,
over these years, I'm sure you've learned so many new things. And the good part is you can always go back and improve your book based on how
absolutely.
you, improve yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things to remember is a book is also fluid. We have the ability in this day and age to go back and update, recreate. We're not working off of 14th century printing press, and it's like it's a one and done.
Yeah.
You get to go back. You get to go back and fix it or update it, however you want to do it.
Right. Thank you for sharing your author experience with us, Bob. So before you go, if you were to give us three money habits that we need to, start building in the year 2022, what would they be?
The first thing I would say is to get really curious about your spending habits and money coming in. And I would take a journal and list out every day money that comes in and money that goes out. That includes gift certificates. That includes a free lunch, so that you can actually start to see the flow of things going on for you. The second thing I would do is to start saving. Even if you have some debt, start saving, create a new habit. A lot of times when people come to me with debt, we work on the debt, but at the same time, we create a savings plan so that we can actually not just keep waiting, right? Wait till I'm an expert on paying off debt before I start saving. Wait till I'm the number one expert before I write a book. Just start doing it. Create that habit. And the third thing I would say is write down the goals that you want to have happen in the next 6 months, the next year, the next 5 years, and time measure them out. How much is it going to cost? How long is it going to take me to get there so that I can actually make my dreams become goals that I can actually accomplish because I've measured it out? I can save this much money. It's going to take me this many months, this many years, and really actually get really conscious and intentional about your goals and about your saving.
These are so practical and, definitely, something that people can immediately get started with. So thank you so much for sharing these valuable nuggets with us, Bob. So where can people go and find out more about you and your book?
So you can find me at The Money Nerve. That's Nerve, Nerve, not nerd. I'm a money nerd, but it's The Money Nerve. And you can reach me through that website. It's got my email. We've got free resources. It's got the online course. You can get the book and check out where I'm doing workshops or where I'll be speaking next.
Amazing. We'll have the link right below in the show notes. Thank you once again, Bob, for coming on Author Success Show.
Thank you so much. It's been great.